For the potential of a disease-free world to come to fruition, a lot of investment goes into this high-stakes process of drug discovery. And AI is transforming this process by using patient-driven biology and data to derive more predictive hypotheses rather than the traditional trial and error approach. So please welcome our next panel of experts, Professor Deva Priyakumar from IIIT Hyderabad, Dr. Alex Zavarnakov from Insilico, CEO of Insilico, and our moderator Sandra Kolna from Intel.
I want to welcome our panelists today, and in today's discussion, we're going to be discussing the promise of life and the power of AI in healthcare and drug discovery acceleration. I am Sandra Kolner. I'm the head of our Lab and Life Sciences in our Health and Life Science and Emerging Technologies group at Intel. At Intel, we focus on solutions that help to really drive health hardware, software, and analytics using the power of amazing technologies such as AI. A lot of variety of use cases, including pharma, biopharma, and laboratory, which are some of the key discussions that we will be highlighting today. I'm going to be your moderator for the panel today, and I really look forward to engaging us in a conversation. Our discussion is going to be focusing on the power of AI. And specifically areas of drug discovery acceleration and investigating the opportunities, the gaps, research and investments, but as well as look at an outlook of some of the mega trends that are really happening in this space. Artificial intelligence has the incredible potential to revolutionize healthcare and by identifying really complex patterns, but it's limited by the quality of data and the quantity of data that's available. But access to sufficiently large and diverse data sets is needed to train these AI models, and really is a significant obstacle in medicine and research. However, we've seen a steady growth in AI in the drug discovery sector. We've seen an increasing number of research partnerships in leading pharma organizations and AI biotechs, but also AI technology vendors that have really kind of grown a pipeline of industry developments, research breakthroughs, and proof of concept studies. So we've also seen that, that leaders in pharma have increasingly seen AI not just as a tool for lead generation, but more of a tool to boost biology research and identify new biological targets, and really help develop novel disease models. We have an incredible panel today, and we have innovators and industry pioneers that are going to give us their perspectives on in an engaging discussion and talk about the benefits and the challenges, especially in AI drug discovery and healthcare. So it's my pleasure to welcome our two panelists today. It is my pleasure today to introduce our two panelists, Dr. Alex Zee, CEO and founder of Insilico Medicine. Alex is a leader in the next generation artificial intelligence technologies for drug discovery and biomarker development. He's also the founder of Deep Longevity, a spinoff of Insilico, developing a broad range of artificial intelligence-based biomarkers for aging and longevity, servicing both healthcare providers as well as the life insurance industry. And since 2015, he's invented critical technologies in the field of generative adversarial networks and reinforcement learning for the generation of novel molecular structures with the desired properties and generation of synthetic, biological, and patient data. He's also pioneered applications in deep learning technologies for the prediction of human biological age using multiple data types, transfer learning from aging to disease, target identification, and signaling pathways and modeling. Alex, welcome.
Thank you, Sandra, for such a generous introduction.
Our next panelist, Dr. Deva Priyakumar, professor of the International Institute of Information Technology. Deva has received his PhD from Pondicherry University Indian Institute of Chemical Technology, followed by a postdoc at the University of Maryland at Baltimore. He's currently a professor at the International Institute of Information Technology and heads the Center for Computational Natural Discovery and Bioinformatics. He's the academic head of iHub Data, a technology innovation hub on data-driven technologies under the National Mission on Interdisciplinary Cyber-Physical Systems. Currently, his research group is applying modern machine learning techniques for molecular design in healthcare. He's been the recipient of awards such as the Chemical Research Society of India Medal, Chemical Society of Japan Distinguished Lectureship, Indian National Science Academy of Young Scientists Medal, JSPS Invitational Fellowship, and Innovative Young Biotechnologist Award. Deborah, we're so thrilled to have you join us today.
Thank you, Sandra, for your very kind introduction. Thank you.
So to start off our panel discussion today, I'd like to invite each of you to give us just a bit more about yourselves in an introduction and discuss your view on the opportunities and the power of AI, specifically in drug discovery. So Alex, let me turn to you first.
Thank you, Sandra, again. And first of all, I'd like to thank Intel for this generous invitation. Big fan. We do collaborate and do use your technologies abundantly in our daily work. My background is in computer science. I did my first two degrees in computer science in Canada, and actually after that I had a pretty successful career in semiconductors, in GPU computing. And for everybody who is listening, I do recommend switching into biotechnology, bioinformatics, AI, regardless of your starting point, because that's the future. And very happy to see really top players in this field, such as Intel, moving into this exciting and very fruitful field for all of us. It's much more interesting than doing video games, right? Or some other forms of entertainment. So to engage in that, we first need to make a little bit more time. I'm extremely passionate about aging research. So I think that in order for us to understand biology, we need to understand aging. And in order to understand diseases, we need to understand aging. So it's not a quest for immortality. It's actually just understanding of normal human biology. And very early in the days of deep learning, I started applying deep neural networks to prediction of human biological age, and then retraining those networks on a variety of diseases, primarily for target identification, to understand what is driving the diseases and what is driving the normal human aging. Then we decided to develop chemistry expertise to very rapidly test those targets with real chemistry, and developed several systems that allow you to go end-to-end from target discovery all the way to preclinical studies with real chemistry, and set a few records on the way, both in generation of novel chemical matter for already known targets, and also for identification of novel targets and going all the way into preclinical candidate stage and first in human. In our case, we are applying deep learning pretty much everywhere in drug discovery, from target ID, small molecule chemistry, prediction of clinical trials, analysis of clinical trials, and also understanding of basic human biology. We utilize GPU quite extensively, but also a lot of CPU compute, and do utilize Intel in many applications. So again, very thankful to Intel for inviting me, and use Intel tools.
Thank you, Alex. Great summary. So Deborah, I'm going to turn to you, asking you the same question.
Yeah, sure. So, thank you again, Sandra, and of course, thanks to Intel for having me in this event. It's a great pleasure to be part of this, and then take part in this discussion. So actually, I was trained as a chemist. I was a chemist doing small molecules, reactions, and then looking at different properties of molecules and things like that, using traditional computational tools. That's how I got trained during my PhD. And then, later we started looking at biomolecules in terms of understanding certain processes like protein folding, RNA folding, and systems like that. That actually, after joining at IIIT Hyderabad, where I am right now, we continued doing, basically that in the sense that we want to look at chemical processes and biological processes and systems using traditional computational tools. So one of the problems that we were encountered early enough was when we were looking at protein folding, we were always trying to pre-decide on certain variables in which we look at folding as a process. So in that, at that time, we started exploring different ways or different techniques from computer science to look at, can we unbias the chemical thinking into the system in terms of understanding these pathways? And hence, somehow we looked at graph theory and several other things before, bumping on to doing some unsupervised machine learning to understand these processes. That's how, we got into, applying machine learning as a tool for understanding, biological systems. This happened about 4 years ago. And, after that, we started applying machine learning techniques to different, chemical systems, like looking at potential energy of chemical molecules, and then slowly move towards using AI for, drug design or molecular design in general. So in the last 2 years also, we have been doing work, in the context of exploring chemical space, right? For example, today, if you take drug-like molecules, the number of theoretical estimate of molecules is somewhere between 10 power 23 to 10 to the power 60, right? So that way, there is absolutely no way that we can use experiments or the traditional computational methods to explore this chemical space to find the molecules that we are interested in. So we started developing methods to make this process of searching the chemical space more efficient, right? So, that's how, initially we looked at, looking at the chemical space, which is known, and then we started looking at the unexplored chemical space, right, towards, trying to find molecules that is of our interest. So, this way we also look at, protein ligand interactions and, how we could use the modern machine learning methods for, understanding protein ligand interactions and hence possibly come up with, interesting small molecules. So that's how, our discovery has been. And currently, I head this new center called iHub Data, where one of the focus areas is applied AI for drug discovery. So that's how, and of course, Intel has been extremely supportive of this, venture. And then, of course, that they are one of the reasons that we have started this in some sense, and it has been going good. So whatever my views are going to be more academic than Alex, I suppose, but yeah. Thanks.
Well, I love that we have this blend, right, on both sides, and especially for me, coming from 20 years in the pharma industry and then now being on the technology side, seeing the blend of the two of you together here is absolutely exciting, and I think it's going to develop a great conversation. So I appreciate that. Thank you, Deva. So. Well, let's kind of just start off here today to talk about some of the current kind of gaps and challenges that you all see, especially in drug discovery, both on where the industry and the research side, the academic side, that you see with AI. So, Alex, I'm going to turn back to you. So I'm going to have you maybe start first and identify, some of those current gaps and challenges that you see.
So sure. Well, the major gaps and challenges in AI-powered drug discovery are very similar to the gaps and challenges with traditional drug discovery. And the major gap and challenge is the absence of really good disease models where you can test the molecules on your target hypothesis in something that is very relevant to human disease, but at the same time is very safe to test in, right? And unlike other applications of AI, like imaging, text, voice, where many of the results can be very rapidly confirmed by humans. So you can basically look at the output and say, oh, this picture is poorly annotated, or this voice is poorly annotated, or this text is poorly interpreted. With biology and chemistry, you really need to do a lot of work where you synthesize the molecule, develop the experimental assay, then test, and only then you confirm, the first base of this, operation. And very often those cycles of validation may take several years. So unfortunately, it's not as quick. And very often people ask us, okay, who are your competitors? What are your competitors doing? And I'm usually answering that, look, there are no competitors. There are only people who race towards the same goal, and they are in the same boat. So we are actually all learning together. We're all working together to help validate AI-generated hypotheses. Biology is so complex that it's very difficult to validate in an experimental model. You need to go into humans. And if you are going into humans, usually you've done already so much work and put so much money into the experiments and into your project that you are naturally becoming more risk averse. Regardless of whether you are a commercial entity or an academic institution. So if you've discovered a novel target, novel molecule, and you're betting on human trials, there you will have to rely on human opinion, and just people will not give you money to bet on projects that are too visionary. So the cost and the difficulty of validation is pretty prohibitive when it comes to really innovative ideas. And we've learned that the hard way. So we need to have more bets on goal. We need to have more players entering the field. And we need people to share the data and also share the failures. That's the most important part. So we need to ensure that failures are published. That's another gap and challenge of the industry.
I think that's an excellent call to action, and something we should all note, Alex, for sure. So Deva, are there additional gaps that you see from your lens?
Yeah, I think Alex covered most of it. Maybe I will add a couple of them, right? So one, of course, is the benchmark, right? So, Alex mentioned about the cycle that it takes, after prediction, once we make a prediction and then just to test the hypothesis or validate it, right? I mean, let us say we develop different models and then, to answer which one is suitable, which one works here, what are the different limitations of that particular model, the feedback, it takes longer. And of course, it costs, a lot of money. And then the second thing that we touched upon is the availability of data, right? So today, I'm sure the data relevant to that data that could be possibly, very, very valuable for AI-driven drug discovery is available, but it is inaccessible to most of the, larger research community, right? So that way, it is a, big bottleneck that we see. And in terms of data that is available, there are, lots of biases. I'll take one example. Recently we have been looking at how good the data sets are in terms of predicting protein ligand binding affinities, right? When you take a drug molecule and then a protein, how strongly do they bind, right? So that's one of the major decisions or one of the factors during the design process itself, right? So, we and others have found that, there are major biases that these available data sets that are publicly available data sets that introduces into our models. So that way, the validation of the models that we actually, build is, kind of, needs, like a lot of investment, right? Both in terms of time and money. And then maybe one particular aspect in academia I can talk about is the possible lack or, not so great cross-disciplinary interactions, right? the traditional research has been like, okay, I'm a computer science, I will do my research in my domain. I'm a chemist, I'm doing my chemistry. But when you come to applied AI, to multiple domains, let's take drug discovery, right? All the action happens in the aisle, right? So, basically the chemists have to move towards the aisle, and then the computational chemists, the computer scientists move towards the aisle where, the actions can happen. So that kind of, it is tough. There is a lot of barrier to cross for both the parties, right? So, and then, in terms of the languages that we speak, they are very, very different. We could be talking about the same thing, but the way we mention or we represent that thing could be very, very different. So that way, one of the major gaps challenges I find is to find the right partner or right collaborator to work with, to make it better. So that's another point I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the sharing between the interdisciplinary sharing is critical, right? And that's definitely something that we need to learn from. So Deba, if kind of adding on a little bit to some of those challenges that you just talked about, I think research is such a major accelerator for this innovation. And my gosh, if the last 2 years have not taught us something on how to apply innovation to science to solve really hard problems, I don't know what else is, right? So, specifically the innovation with AI in preclinical discovery, what do you see as some of the most promising research of late, and what are you excited about?
Yeah, there are several things. So, if you look at what has happened in the last, less than 5 years, right? Alex mentioned about, he working in target discovery all the way up to predicting clinical trials, right? So, if you look at the overall drug discovery pipeline, starting from the disease to target identification to identifying hits to leads, and then clinical trials to market, for example, right? So you have seen that people have shown, or there's a lot of work that has happened just in the last 3 to 4 years, where the only thing that could possibly be common in all these tasks is AI, right? So traditionally, for example, if you take the target identification, mostly it's the biologists who look at the disease, the virologists or microbiologists looking at understanding disease pathways and so on. And then once that is known, it's the X-ray crystallographers or NMR spectroscopists who would try and get the structure and so on, right? This is like a large number of different experts that come together to complete this pipeline. So, but right now, what I kind of believe is AI is kind of the string that which kind of puts these beads together, right? And then makes this pipeline much more efficient and more focused, I would say, right? I'll just take a simple example. Right? Let's take I'm interested in making molecules that has a specific purpose, right? So let us say I have to do a design and then come up with the reaction pathways. And then we have to actually make it in a lab and then characterize it in the sense that we have to confirm that that's what, I have made what I intended to make in the first place, right? So now, a question that we are talking now and people are exploring is the whole thing in one pipeline, right? So this, I don't know if this was possible, even to just ask this question, if this was possible, 3 to 4 years ago. Right, like for example, design. Alex talked about generative models. We can, each of these tasks can be kind of designed as an inverse problem, and then you're solving. You would be solving the direct problem in traditional sciences, but AI and the machine learning has kind of enabled us to ask the question the other way around, and then string these things together, and then now we can talk about a generative pipeline, followed by retrosynthetic analysis by AI algorithms, followed by AI-assisted robots who can actually do the synthesis, followed by characterization of compounds using algorithms which just take the fingerprints from the spectra and then tell us exactly what that is. So we are actually started asking questions which are possibly unthinkable even a few years ago. So that way, I think a lot of research is going on, which are very, very exciting in general. Yeah.
It's all of those learnings, right, that are just coming together. It's just part of that excitement. You know, Alex, David just talked a little bit about the generative research that you've been doing, right, with artificial intelligence. Would you tell us a little bit more about that, about what you've been working on for drug discovery, and how that's really accelerated, I think, from years to days, right? I think those are one of the things that I've noted. I'd love to hear more about that.
So sure. Well, we started very early in generative chemistry and generative biology. So right after Ian Goodfellow published his work on GANs, generative adversarial networks that are very commonly associated with deepfakes. And what we started doing with that technology, we're trying to apply these deepfakes to human biological data and synthesizing data from scratch that is often indistinguishable from real data. And since one of my academic interests is aging, we try to work on longitudinal data of healthy people. And we try to utilize generative approaches to basically extrapolate entire populations in time. So you take somebody who is, let's say 20-year-old, apply new features, new generation conditions, and extrapolate that person, that patient, 20, 30, 50 years out, creating a distribution of that same person with new input conditions. So that way you can generate really good high quality synthetic data with the desired properties. So that's what we do in generative biology, and that's the technique that we commonly use for target discovery. So now if you use gene expression or protein expression data, you can manipulate some of the input features and generation conditions and try to look what happens with the patient if you mutate, downregulate, upregulate certain genes. And in chemistry, the same technology, same deepfakes technology may be applied to a generation of molecules using already known template. So you take an existing molecule and add new features, new parameters to that molecule, doing multi-parameter optimization. For example, very often molecules in the known chemical space are imperfect. They just do not make really great drugs. For example, they need to be administered IV, so intravenously. And you want to make that same molecule orally accessible and also bioavailable, metabolically stable, crossing the blood-brain barrier, going into specific tissue. So now AI allows you to do that, allows you to, and of course it allows you to also go outside the patent space, right? So you can achieve certain novelty that allows you to pursue a certain target with the molecule with novel properties. However, the most interesting application is when you have the crystal structure of the molecule, of the protein, or a predicted crystal structure can identify certain pockets, certain binding pockets, and very rapidly identify and generate small molecules with the desired properties that do not exist in known chemical space. And they have higher hit rates than when you are doing screening. So what we did, we actually combined those two techniques. And for the first time, to my knowledge, we've managed to generate novel targets, for a chronic disease like fibrosis, very rapidly generated novel molecules for that novel target and progressed it all the way into preclinical candidate stage and also completed all the IND enabling studies, so going into humans now. And that is a pretty cool story because we've used generative AI to identify a target, use generative AI to generate novel chemical matter, and progressed all the way into humans, and that is pretty cool. So fingers crossed. Of course, you cannot claim success until it enters the market and starts helping patients. But I'm extremely excited about this achievement.
As you should be. It's fantastic. So, David, there has been just so much acceleration in AI, especially in academia and research, in both pharma for small molecule, but also in large molecule with biopharma, stemming out of the COVID pandemic. And I think it's really just come to the forefront. So, I'd love to hear a little bit more about from your perspective on some of those really impactful advancements, and how they've really helped to accelerate AI and bring it to the forefront.
Yeah, so in the last, again, after the COVID pandemic, a lot of things have been happening in terms of taking or investing in the technology aspects that could make a difference in AI. Maybe I will just talk about the project that we did with the support of Intel. So after the pandemic started, about 2 months into the pandemic, Varma and RS, from Intel, had put together a group that people from Intel, IIIT Hyderabad, CSIR, IGIB, Max Hospitals in New Delhi, in India, and so on. And then we actually started collecting a lot of data related to COVID-19 positive patients. So this is something Intel initiated it, and then that helped us work on this crucial problem effectively, I would say. Right. So, one of the things that we did was we started from the data coming out of Wuhan, and then we started modeling, and then tried to develop mortality prediction and risk stratification models, and then try to kind of, geared up towards the Indian data. And then once we got the, data from the hospitals from India, we could show a marked difference in terms of how these two populations responded to this disease very, very differently. And then we could follow up and then, model these, mortality prediction and risk stratification. And then also, we also started looking at, how to combine these, vital hematological parameters along with imaging data to understand the disease progression and so on. And then, recently we combined all this along with the, genome of the viral genome, and then we identified major, associations between certain type of mutants of the virus with respect to the disease severity associations, right? So that's just an example of one of the things that we were part of, in the, post COVID. During the pandemic, in the last 1.5 years or so. But in the overall academic setting, I see quite a few initiatives by the funding agencies, both government and private industries, in terms of taking applied AI to different domains. So I mentioned about iHub data. Right, so IIIT Hyderabad, has established this iHub data, which is a technology innovation hub, and the funding is about $15 million over 5 years. So parallelly, 24 other hubs have been identified, and then they have been established to work in the interdisciplinary cyber physical systems area in general. So we do see a large acceleration, a lot of interest, in academia and government and industry, and then people are coming together to take up multiple different kinds of activities. So it's been exciting periods, yeah, in that sense.
Very much so. Well, Alex, I know you are also very involved in a number of initiatives stemming from the response or the call to industry, right, to help innovate with AI. Do you want to highlight a little bit of the work that you've done as well within Silico Medicine?
So sure. Well, I would like to first resonate with Deva and kind of acknowledge Intel's efforts in this space. So thank you for kind of joining the COVID response and helping fund a large number of initiatives worldwide in this area. Many of those are very fruitful and hopefully will also grow into an industry. And again, since it takes a lot of time to validate the predictions and generations from AI, it will take time for those investments to bear fruit in COVID. However, I would like to highlight a range of initiatives that we've seen in the industry. Well, first of all, many of the companies that were previously not focusing on healthcare started initiatives in this field. You've seen that some of the companies like DeepMind, for example, started initiatives in small molecule drug discovery, and specifically protein prediction first, and now Google also started a startup, an additional kind of alphabet company specifically focused on drug discovery. Deep bow for that, even though some people again might consider them as competitors, but there is nothing more valuable than human life, and we need to embrace every new entrant that joins the field as a partner. And many companies that were previously not doing drug discovery or not doing healthcare, they started going into this area. It still, I would say, is underfunded quite dramatically. So to my surprise, we do not see reductions in the investment in military technology, for example, which is crazy. But we see some acceleration in the funding of healthcare and biotechnology projects. From what I started doing quite a bit is combination of AI and robotics. So I think that we will see more fruits from those efforts when you try to close the cycle and very rapidly go after novel targets and validate novel targets. What we did in COVID, we designed small molecules with the desired properties for one of the critical proteins of COVID, C3-like protease. So currently we're in preclinical stage testing the activity of those molecules in animals. And we've conducted multiple studies that show safety and activity in vitro, but of course you need to demonstrate activity in multiple animal models. And since there are other molecules that are nearing the market, you need to identify differentiation and additional benefits to the patients. So we have to redesign those molecules to ensure that they contain new properties like oral availability or lower toxicity and many other properties, and going after broader spectrum of COVID proteins, and also maybe going after some additional viruses in the family. So I think the attention that healthcare got in general has increased due to COVID, and also the level of investment. However, I don't think it's comparable to what COVID is doing to the economy. So we need to see more investment, both in COVID and in healthcare and in general, AI-powered drug discovery.
And I think both of you bring up excellent points, but I commend you both for the collaborative nature of the projects that you've embarked upon, and has really, really helped to accelerate those efforts. And I hope that the investments continue to follow as well. So, Deva, I'm going to turn back to you. We've covered a lot of ground today, and I think given a lot of great discussion points in regards to the opportunities, the challenges. We've talked a bit about research and some of the investment opportunities that are being powered in these growth areas. When you pull out your crystal ball and look at the outlook of some of these mega trends, what does it look like? Give us a view into the future, especially on the academia side.
Yeah, I think maybe maybe I'll start with the larger healthcare, right? So technology, I think in general and AI in particular, is possibly the key to democratize healthcare, right? So especially in countries like India, where we still struggle to provide quality healthcare, at the population scale. So how could we achieve this? Possibly innovative hardware, software integrations, which some part of is driven by AI, and then the second one is possibly multimodal AI, where we start making decisions with the use of pattern recognition and using the machine in general by possibly combining all kinds of data. It could be like the data coming out of one's smart watch, or the regular vitals or hematological parameters, all the way to medical images and multi-omic data, right? So somehow the multimodal AI, which kind of combines different kinds of inputs in a way to make decisions for a better healthcare. So that's where in general that's how I think the AI could possibly transform the way we handle healthcare today, both in terms of the tertiary care or to at a primary care, right? So the other possible areas you mentioned about biopharma already, I don't know much about it, but I've been reading it, reading about it recently. But there seems to be a lot of potential for AI, in biopharma, and also in personalized or precision medicine, right? But as I said before, when we come back to the drug discovery process itself, now the pipeline of disease to the marketing the drug seem to be played by a number of different players, and AI is the one which I believe that could bring these people together, or this is the one which has the potential to tie them together. So another way to look at it is that in the quest for discovering new drugs for the existing diseases, and also for the newer kind of diseases that come along, like the COVID-19 for example, right? So possibly the low-hanging fruits have long gone, right? So we should possibly look at all possible ways of using different methods to address this drug discovery process, and then AI is a key, is what I believe. Yeah.
Fantastic. I like your crystal ball. This is good. Alex, I'm gonna toss to you. Additions to what Dev's just covered, or a different perspective.
Well, imagine that there is a crystal ball, and I'm looking at it, and I'm seeing Intel transforming itself into a healthcare company, and Sandra Kollner becoming a CEO. That would be super cool, right?
Right.
But kind of in a more near-term scenario. So I think that AI-powered robotics is going to be the next big thing in AI-powered drug discovery. So closing the loop. We've been talking about body on a chip for a very long time, for a couple decades by now. So now I hope that we will, in the near future, in the next decade, see that dream come to fruition, at least in some shape and form. So we see academics and companies going into that direction. So to ensure rapid validation. And we need to look beyond disease. We need to look at aging as a source of a plethora of diseases. And instead of just basic preventative medicine, we need to look at longevity medicine and figure out how to tweak some of those features that change in the course of lifespan, and maintain humans in this state of optimal performance for as long as possible, and also to maybe reverse some of the pathological changes that transpire during aging and disease. So that's why some of the projects that I'm pursuing have dual purpose. So we are purposing the target of the molecule towards a specific chronic disease, but at the same time, it might have beneficial effects in the course of your entire lifespan. So think of statins, the aspirins, and metformins of the world. So many drugs may have dual purpose. So we need to train AI to identify those drugs using longitudinal data and disease data, so that you can go beyond disease. And of course, we need to look beyond drugs. We need to look at exercise, sleep, diet, meditation, and many other forms of prevention and performance optimization to prevent disease. and again, maintain the state of optimal performance. And of course, it's great to see Intel going into that direction as well, because you're powering wearables, you're powering mobile applications, and looking at the health ecosystem in general. So we need to figure out how to prevent disease and again prevent the age associated decline.
Absolutely, and excellent points, and good call to action for sure. I have really enjoyed our conversations today, and Alex and Debbie, you guys provide a fantastic overview of where we are today, where the future is looking, and we've got an amazing opportunity. I think excellent calls to action today. We need to continue the collaborations. We need, in order to really advance AI. We need to learn from our failures. I think that's really important. We need to share those, right? Continue to publish those. I love the vision of pulling together all of this multimodal data in order to learn from AI and advance it, and then look ahead in the future with definitely embracing longitudinal data, but AI and robotics. I like this. It could be a follow-on discussion that we could look at as well. So especially in preclinical discovery. So I cannot thank you both enough for your insights and all of your work in the field to really advance AI in healthcare and in drug discovery. And we're just so excited to see the mountains continue to move and watch you pave the way for new innovations and instrumental innovation. So thank you all today. We really, really appreciate it.
A big thanks to our panel members for a thoroughly fascinating discussion.